Hi, this is Jonathan. Welcome to the channel. In this video, I thought I'd address some of the questions that's been posed to me in this channel. So I'll probably answer a couple of them, and we'll make this the first in a series. All right, so stay tuned. The first question that was posed to me, is this one: name your favorite guitar players, especially the one who have influenced you. I have a whole lot of guitar players, but predominantly the one guy that influenced me a whole lot was Steve Lukather. And then there was Larry Cowden, Lee Retner. I actually started listening to Lee Retner first, and then to Larry Cowden, and then to Steve Lukather. And I'm just hearing these three players at the same time. And subsequently, as I got along, buying these albums that I like, especially the ones that feature Steve Lukather, I am introduced to other session players like Jay Graydon, Michael Landau, Dan Huff, and these are the guys that I listen to all the time. And also one more guy, Robin Ford. Yeah, great blues player, great jazz rock blues player, all-rounder. I really love the way he played, his phrasing and his tones. So these are the guys that influenced me in my earlier years. The next question is, can you show us how to write some of the solos that you played? I got news for you. I don't read music, and it's a long story. It's just that I didn't have the finances, and didn't have the time because I was working then to actually have a formal education in music, which I regret to this day. And for you guys out there, who are contemplating whether to learn, music, I say go for it, because there are lots of gigs that I missed out because I couldn't sight read. And the only time that I get to play in a concert is because the producer wanted, my input, what I can put on the table. And these are far and in between because you're not functioning as a session player, and I miss out a whole lot of gigs. So in any case, back to the question. I cannot write the solos that I play. But what I can do is to tell you how I go about doing it. As you all might know, I'm also a vocalist. I sing too. And even if you don't sing, you can always hum a tune. So what I do is when I have a piece of music, like for example a backing track, which is devoid of any melodies, I will try to compose melodies to it and sing and get the feel of it. Ultimately, when it comes to playing the guitar on it, whether it's a solo, it will sound radically different. But at least you have that bass line, the basic structure to go with. And from there, you can just kind of like wing it, kind of like improvise a little bit here and there. So you get the basic structure going, a basic line. And with a certain chord structure, you can actually go about doing that. And then you have this melody line that is the basis of the song. And from there, you can actually compose the bridge or the chorus that follows. And if you were to do an instrumental song, there's so many things that you can do. You can ad-lib along the way. You can ad-lib a full-blown solo, and vice versa. All right, I hope this helps. The third question is, what are some of your favorite guitar solos to learn to expand your abilities? That's a challenging question. But I'll probably start by giving you a story of how I kind of like improve my playing by just a single statement from a friend. When I was younger, I was playing in a sort of it's not a professional band, it's just a couple of friends getting together, and we're talking about like when I was 18, and we used to, play in this jam studio, rehearsal studio, just for fun. We're not making any money, and we would attempt to play all sorts of songs by Bread or by Eagles and stuff like that. And I was really into the guitar, but I didn't have an inkling what I'm doing. Basically, I actually suck big time back then. So we were doing this song Hotel California by Eagles, and I had to do the solo, right? So I did the best I can, but I knew in my heart that it wasn't there. So I went to the studio, and lo and behold, my friend, who's a drummer, brought along his elder brother, who is a bartender, and he plays the keyboards, And we were playing that song, Hotel California, and after that we took a break, you know. And he came over to me and he laid it to me point blank. And he says, "John, that was the worst beep solo I ever heard." You know. Not in a good not in a good way, okay? So he meant it in a negative way. My heart sank because my heart broke, you know, and but then it stirred in me this determination to nail the solos of the song. So I went back home, and for the next month or so, I practically played the album to death, especially that track. You know, I learned every nook and cranny of that solo by Don Felder and Joe Walsh, and I just spent so much time on these solos that the next time we went to the studio, and this time he was around, this brother of my friend, the drummer, and we played the song. And he came over to me and he hugged me and says, "You did it. You did it." So sometimes all we need is a little push. You know, it could be negative in the get-go, but then, you know, if you can rise above it, you know, you can probably achieve certain things that you want to do. So back to the question. You know, what's the question anyway? The question is, some of my favorite solos. Oh, well, one of them is Hotel California. In that song itself, there's so many things I learned. You know, the fills, the little fills that Joe Walsh did, or that, you know, that Don Felder did within the song before the full-blown solo at the end, and of course the full-blown solo at the end. And that kind of like my first part of education of country playing in a way, and country rock playing. Of course, there's the other song by Boss Skaggs, titled "You Can Have Me Anytime." Album was what's the album called? The album is called Middleman, and that song was arranged by David Foster, and the guitar solo in it was played by Carlos Santana, and it's the most lyrical guitar solo I ever heard, and I gleaned a lot from that. I learned a lot from that solo. The other solos that inspire me a lot are solos by, of course, Steve Lukather and Jay Graydon. Now, Jay Graydon has been called the master soloist, you know, the master soloist in his time, because he plays the most tasteful solo ever. The fourth question that I have is, when you use your Helix live, how do you make sure that when you hear in your studio is what you'll hear in a live setting, example on stage? Are you using FR monitors in your studio? Well, as you can see, I'm using a set of studio speakers, and that's it. I don't have space for FR monitor in my room. What I do is, with my Helix, is that I try to get what I hear in the studio, you know, from these studio monitors, and these are the monitors that I work with for the longest time. So I'm pretty familiar with them. So I try to get my tone through these speakers, hoping that they will sound the same on stage. So through the years, I found that these speakers are pretty accurate, you know, and what I'm hearing here is very close to what I'm hearing on stage, especially on the front monitors that I have. So that's the way to go. And I take special attention to certain frequencies, like, you know, I will sometimes have a bass card, and I wouldn't want my guitar sound to be too boomy, because, you know, once it gets too boomy, it's kind of hard to tame that monster. And at the same time, I try to not have it too bright, because, you know, depending on the sound that you want. Like, for example, if you want a Michael Landau chorusy stuff, you probably add a little bit more highs. It would be a glassy character to it. But, you know, for a general, like the distortion, I try to make it as organic as possible. And given the fact that the Helix features a whole lot of guitar amp simulation, cab simulation, you are able to achieve that. So the different guitars that I use for my stage work, I have different patches for different guitars. You know, so that's how I go about doing it. My last and final question is this: what are the voicings and inversions you use for chords? Preferably Chinese pop songs. And why would you use your thumb for certain bar chords? So I try to use the ninth in most of my voicings. but I don't want to repeat myself too often. So sometimes I switch between the normal chord voicings and the ninth. And if I'm able to have like open voicings, that would be great. And it depending on the song, like, you know, is the song in open E, you know, like, you know, you have the low E going, and what sort of rhythm parts are you playing? So there's a whole lot of variables. And if you're playing in the E flat key, you know, what can you do if you want that open kind of voicing? Then the only way is to use a capo or a capo. And with that, you can actually achieve certain voicings that you want to do. As to the thumb, this thumb, I use it a lot because it gives me a whole different way of playing my chords. And I've been criticized for having weird fingers. You know, some of them said that I'm retarded in my fingers and stuff like that. But that's the way I play, you know. And like I said before, I have no formal instructions, you know. I have no formal guitar teachers that corrected me. So I'm stuck with this weird finger shape. But the thumb is a really useful tool for me, because I could like play certain things, certain voicings, like the 11 chords and stuff like that with my thumb. And this is what I use my thumb for, right? So that's all I have for this first Q&A session, and I hope you enjoyed this. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up, and I hope all these questions and answers will help you in your guitar playing. You have any more questions, feel free to post it down below, and I'll just try to keep it in a series, you know, to make it as a series. So until the next video, you guys take care. Ciao.